And thank you everyone for coming to this, and I think I have all the right faces too. But really today, just really talking high level, this is all about the Climate Action Earth Week, and I think a lot of times we talk about sustainability. What does that mean to everyone? What does it mean for the university? And then how can we integrate some of the practices into campus operations? So basically today, just a quick intro as to why we're actually talking about this. A lot of times when we talk sustainability, we're thinking maybe just the waste management and energy. A lot of the physical operations within sustainability, but we don't really talk about what does that mean within campus operations. So today I'll talk a little bit at a high level on why sustainability in operations, what is sustainability to the university, and then just to kind of give you an overview of what I call like the sustainability framework that most universities are using. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, and kind of use that framework to look at where do we fit as a university, and then talk to you about some of the highlights we've done on the operational side, and then some of the proposed projects that we want you to do for FY24. And then take any questions and answers. As always, if anything, how you want to get engaged, you can always reach out to the Office of Sustainability. So really, sustainability at Tech, what does it mean? Just in a nutshell, it just simply means to live, learn, and grow within our campus community in a manner that protects and strengthens our physical and societal environments such that students and staff and faculty of future generations, not just today, can continue to develop and enjoy our campus community. So simply put, what is it? So you have the triple bottom line: environment, the economy, and society. So it's a good business practice. We have to consider the triple bottom line: the people, planet, and profit. If you look at it, an impact in one area affects the other two. And all three are important and must not be overlooked or looked at in isolation. So when you think about sustainable development within the university, I want you to think about the people, the planet, and the profit. Right now, I think a lot of times when we think sustainability, our first thing is just mainly the environment. But all of that ropes in together. They're all interconnected. So, and then the one thing I need for everyone to understand too, this is probably one of the biggest challenges that's been faced by the world as a whole, but also the universities. Universities in the sense that we are at a time, you're tackling so many issues. Virginia Tech, we're a bit fortunate, and we're seeing increased enrollment, but we're competing with our peers as well. We're seeing dwindling budgetary allocations from state. We're seeing challenges with increasing operational costs. One thing that always sticks to mind when I think about the costs, when my daughter started her undergrad in Case almost like 10 years ago, tuition was about $40-something thousand a year. When she graduated, it was like 60-something thousand. And she asked me a simple question. She said, "Mom, you're in facilities. The value of my education has not gone up, but the cost has gone up by almost $20-something thousand. What do you have to say to that?" And I think the only thing that came to mind was in operations. We focus on physical aspect of sustainability, but we're not focusing on the business aspect of sustainability. So the question is, we can keep increasing costs for, let's say, new buildings as we grow, but we can't keep increasing costs to account for inefficiencies and ineffectiveness within our system. And that's kind of what I want us to look at today. Because I know you're going to get a lot of talks about the physical operational type strategies that we have on campus, but this is really to hone you in on some of the things we can do from a business standpoint to ensure that we're sustainable, to ensure that we eliminate all the waste and inefficiencies within our system. So with that, what is sustainability operations? If you look at the high-level definition, it's operations that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability to meet the future needs of future generations. So what's the purpose? Of course, you want to maximize student enrollment. You want to reduce your costs. You want to improve employee value by embracing opportunities and managing risks derived from the environment. Why? Because we are at a critical juncture in the evolution of our relationship to the environment. We're not isolated from it. So one of the things that I need for us as we go through this, sustainability in operations, to me in a nutshell, I probably call it survival, everyone hears about survival of a business. So for us to survive for the next generation and for this generation, we really have to be flexible and think about how we're going to incorporate some of these principles. Like I said, we have the CAC, the 15 goals, but I want us to look at the business operational aspect of it as well. What does it mean? And I'll share with you some of the basic frameworks that others have used, so we're not reinventing the wheel. And when I go through it, you're going to basically answer a lot of questions about why should we do what we're doing? How can we be organized? What's the push for some of the things that we're doing? I'm sorry, I'm really hot. So one of the biggest drivers really for this is why should we be involved? And I think the first level we all know, we have limited resources. We have limited budgets. And then as you realize that, okay, if you don't reduce budget, let's say for example in your electricity consumption and things like that, or you continue to use high energy levels, it's going to impact your environment. It's going to impact your surroundings. So when you start addressing the first question is, why should we be involved? We have limited resources. We have no choice. We have to if we have to be sustainable. And then also secondarily, as you go through that, you realize that there's a lot of interdependence on your consumption and what impacts the environment. Like people always question, why is a power plant generating so much? It's only generating what we use, we consume it. So our consumption patterns and everything that we do, it impacts what the resources that are available. And as you begin to think that way, you no longer think in isolation. So the progression is that as you start thinking, I have limited resources. What I do, my choices, my actions impact my environment. Then you start having a change in paradigm. And you start thinking about life in general, about the way we operate as a campus. Let's say, for example, if you're like a maintenance worker and you drive from point A to point B for work on campus, you may start thinking, hey, from the environmental standpoint, I need to look, I can't just be driving back and forth. Can I look for better ways to run this operation? Can I set up maybe warehouses in the middle of campus that's closer to work? So I don't have to drive from here all the way back to Sterrett and then move parts. These are all subtle things that impact your business. This is part of your business operations. And the same thing on the waste side. You can also imply some of those principles. The same thing on the paper side, which you'll see later. We have a lot of technologies. We have technologies, but guess what? We're still printing massive amounts of paper on campus. How can you leverage technology to reduce that waste? People don't think about that. They're only thinking, oh yeah, energy, physical waste management. They're not thinking, there's subtle business things that I can do. And then when you start doing that, you realize that, wow, you start thinking at a higher level, so it's no longer mandated on you. Start looking at this environmental equity and justice. What I do here impacts people in other parts of the community, of the world, so you're no longer in isolation. So that's the first question is, why should we be involved? So you think limited resources, environmental independence, your paradigms start shifting, and you start questioning the environmental aspect, equity and the justice aspect of it, because what you do impacts someone else negatively on the other side of the planet. And then secondarily is, what can we do? What can we do? I'm sure a lot of you can answer really high level at the university operational level, because that's like your layer one. I mean, Teresa, you're handling waste management. I don't see the energy folks here. Nam, you have electricity. But these are all at the physical level at operation. It touches upon the materials. And if you look at our CAC, I think a bulk of the goals are on the physical operations. That's the first thing you see when you come into campus, when you come into anywhere. That makes a big impact. So when you start looking at the operations and you at least start at that level, that's the most fundamental. And the next level of engagement, which is really, because we're a university, is research and education. You can choose to be engaged at so many different levels. You can choose to say, hey, we want to integrate what we're doing at base operations into the academic experience. That's one aspect. The other aspect, which I'm glad that the university is embarking on, is the campus as a living learning laboratory. That's just another level of engagement where you're pairing physical operations with the academic side of campus. But that's going to be a huge, huge initiative that will hopefully help to transform our campus. And then as you begin to engage at that level, you're forced into looking at how can, at the management level, how is that rolled into, and that's where you start talking about policies. We have our energy policy, which was revised, which we need to push out to campus and start deploying. But a lot of the things that we're pushing for at the physical level, at the research and development level, now you have to roll it up to the policy level. We've had challenges, especially with the infrastructure bill and then the IRA that was passed. A lot of our researchers want to do innovative type projects. But if we don't have the policies in place, it will not enable them to do that. So policy plays a really, really key role to sustain a lot of these things. So it starts at the physical level, operations, it rolls into the research and education. Then your policies at the management level really drive. But I think ultimately, if you want a truly, truly, truly sustainable campus, then it rolls into the university mission. I always tell people, I said, we're here, our business is education. We have the students, and we have the researchers. So we have to provide the environment that's conducive for their growth. So I think when sustainability rolls into ultimately to become part of your university mission, then it's truly, truly, truly sustainable. Otherwise, it feels like pulling teeth. But these are all natural progression. We're taking baby steps, as I always tell people, like riding a bicycle. You start with your training wheels, but you gotta practice. You gotta practice. The more you practice, you get to a point where you no longer need the training wheels. At the university operations level, it's practice. It's practice, and after a while, it's embedded within your research and your education. It's embedded within your university management policies and things that we develop for campus, and ultimately becomes part of the university mission. So when somebody walks into tech, when you ask them, what's our mission? There's a sustainability aspect tied to it, and it's tied to each and every one of our performance development, performance management. We're measured against it. It becomes part of the Hokie language, which is really where we want to be. So the last question is, how should we organize? How should we organize? When you look at that, it's typically you have the environmental management, which is that university operations level. You're looking at measuring everything that you do. You're looking at your EUIs for energy, waste management, and all of that. So that's all part of that. And then the next level is the university, sustainable university. So at that level, you start looking at the whole, your peers around, not just your state, but also the world and everything around you, your different universities. How can you interact with them? How can university as a whole? Because you guys are the solutions provider, we are. And after that, you have your sustainable network and ultimately your sustainable society. But it kind of takes you through the pathways of sustainability. And our goal, hopefully, in 2025, we're revising the CAC. And we're going to keep pushing, really, to make sure that ultimately this becomes part of the university's mission. So this chart, I didn't want to start with this chart, but you can kind of look at this and consider like where you are, what you see. It's like, I call it like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The higher you go, you can kind of see where you fit in. So when you look at our campus, we're probably a mix, but I'll probably say we're probably more in this quadrant right here. When you look at, we're starting with on the physical side, but to really roll it into the research and education. So you can always look at this and see where do you fit in. So basically your x-axis answers the question of why should we be involved? And it deals with the university objectives and development, concerning development. So this is why should we involve, the limits, limited resources, the interdependence, and all of that, and ultimately equity for the environment and for people around us. And then the y-axis talks about the level of engagement. Right now, the physical operations is probably the most engaged in sustainability of campus. You have the students as well, but we really want to roll it into here, which the call will help us to do. And then in addition to that, we're working on several policies that will help us to achieve our goals. And ultimately, the university mission has to incorporate that. And that's when President Sands, or whoever is the president, when they develop their annual goals, sustainability goals is part of that, and that trickles down to the rest of the university. This is really where we want to be. And then we talk about being a leader in the environment and things like that, and then push more towards here. So right now, we are like right here. We're taking the baby steps. We're gonna get there. We're working on a lot of the physical stuff. And today, I want to start looking at what can we do from a campus operational standpoint, from a business operation to help us out, and just highlight some of the soft things we've been doing. I think the Dining Student Affairs, they've done a really great amount of work in partnership with procurement in terms of their material, their reusable to-go program. They've done really marvelous, and that's really helped out with the waste management program as well. There's a lot of courses that's designed for the students when they come in and things like that, so that's really helpful. Sustainable procurement has been really key. We've been working a lot with them lately to see how those policies can be updated, and we're making great strides with them. The Green Labs program, working with EHS, and most recently, I think that's been passed over to sustainability to help man that effort. But these are all operational type things that's been going on. The water bottle filling stations, that's all through the Green R&D program, which is really great. So I want us for the next year, we have a new chief operating officer for campus, Amy Seawick. I know I'm throwing this out there but ultimately this would really fall into her wheelhouse to look at the business operations. And some of the high level things that I kind of threw out for FY24, at least FY24 will help us generate like a baseline. And I'm hoping next year when we do this presentation to have some data to present to this team. So really looking at effectiveness and efficiency initiatives. These are things that work groups would have to be developed. I don't have all the work groups yet, but I do have some volunteers for some of the initiatives. These are things that work groups, baselines would have to be created. And one of the big ones I have for this next fiscal year is really look at improving our procurement policies and procedures in critical areas. Jack and I think Elisha, you guys have been working with Mary Helmick. I want to see how we can partner with the IT folks to really focus on this year, let it be more on the IT end. Because the IT folks are complaining that when we purchase IT materials, servers, you name it on campus, they really don't have any input into that. So looking at the specifications, the guidelines, the reviews, to look at because ultimately if we can do it efficiently, that will save money, not just on the cost standpoint, but also on the energy standpoint as well. The second one is to really expand analytic capabilities system-wide across the different divisions and the different departments. How can we use data more effectively? We're still kind of a manually driven institution, but how can we elevate that? But we have to, part of that process would be mapping out some of our business processes, looking at where we have wastes and a lot of redundancies, and seeing how we can use technology and analytics to eliminate some of those wastes. And then the third one is prepare and continue to move to cloud computing as appropriate. In addition to the cloud computing, like virtualizing a lot of the data centers, co-located, we're about to embark on a big project to audit all the different motion servers around campus, which we really don't have any data on, and then working with IT to see how can we either upgrade their equipment, how can we co-locate, how can we look for better ways to use the data centers on campus. And then increase collaboration and interdivisional department activities. Most of you know we are a heavily siloed university. There are costs as a result of that. We're really looking at some of our key operations on campus and then see how we can break down those silos and then work better collaboratively versus being competitive. We're excessively competitive and that introduces a lot of costs to the university. And this is kind of one of my favorite ones because I think the soft volunteers are Christina and Karen to kind of help, at least for the next year's initiative, which is commitment to optimal use of technology in campus and system-wide operations. And I think one of the basic fundamental projects that we can really work on is how can we become a paperless campus? It's a tall order. We have tablets, we have phones. Should we be printing anything at all with those things? Granted, there are certain things like archives and stuff that we do have to have paper. We can look at those, look at the policies, but I'm like, if we cannot achieve this basic basic. It's not very complex. How can we achieve the more complex type initiative? So this will be something I think that will be, it may be basic, but I think it will be transformational for VT. How can you start using technology and leverage that to really reduce the inefficiencies and ineffectivenesses on campus? And last but not least, I think the overall intent, sustainability makes business sense if done properly. How can we use it to really continue to reduce costs and fund quality in the system? Because like I said, we have a lot of waste. The waste within the systems do not add value to our systems. So we have to work on how can we continuously reduce and eliminate those wastes. Because at the end of the day, we're not just operating for today. We're developing systems that can be operable and sustainable for the next generation. So that's really all I have today. And to get them, we're not there yet. We're going to start there. I always say, save the earth because it's the only planet with chocolate until they discover something else. But the university is really a right place to do innovative type things for not just our community here, but the world as a whole. We can come up with innovative business practices that can be shared with other people and really change the paradigm. Our CAC goals are really, really great. And then we're at the cusp right now, but I think we can transform. We're doing a lot of things on the physical side. Let's also extend that to the business operational side. And for those of you that are willing to volunteer, you can always reach out to the Sustainability Office for anything that you would like to help out with. So with that, any questions?